Hey guys, what the heck is going on? Sam Cox here with Team Bropire, and coming at you guys today with a video that I've been wanting to make for quite a while on the channel here, and we're going to be talking about an interesting aspect of this game, a specific group of cards that we all know and love that are kind of lackluster, so to speak, and to sum it up easily before we go diving way into this, we're going to be talking about the bad cards of Yu-Gi-Oh! That see competitive play, otherwise known as the Garnets of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, chances are you guys have probably heard the term Garnet before. This is a video that, again, I've been wanting to make for a long time because it's a topic in this card game that isn't necessarily going to go out of style anytime soon. I would say that the majority of the time that this card game has been a thing for 20 plus years, this has been a relevant topic in regards to deck building, deck profile strategies, and I would say the overall gameplay of Yu-Gi-Oh. So yeah, we all have a list of our favorite cards, I would say, and if everybody made like a list of their top, we'll say top 5 or so, you would probably pick out a card or two in that list that is really, really, really good, but kind of has a downside to playing it. Now, if I made a top list of my favorite cards, I would say that Brilliant Fusion is probably in that list. Brilliant Fusion is a card that's really great, but does have a lot of downsides. If you guys are familiar with that card, then you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you're familiar with that card, then you probably know where this video is headed. So let's get real for a sec. This is a topic that goes really well with Yu-Gi-Oh, but also other card games, I'd say, and life in general. If you have things that you want, then you have to deal with the downside of what those things might bring. Every yin has yang, so to speak, and to deal with the necessities in order to keep what we want. So yeah, we're going to be chatting about the cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That we call Garnets. Now, before we dive crazy far into this video, I just wanted to take a minute to ask you guys to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I would really appreciate that very much. This channel is getting, thousands and thousands and thousands of views on some stuff, and there is not near as many subscribers as we have viewers, so we're a little uneven there. If you guys can hit the subscribe button, I would appreciate that very much. It really does help the channel grow, and it helps with our algorithms here on YouTube. And down below, there's a few different things. If you guys want to check out my band's music, I would appreciate that very much. It's absolutely free to check it out. And if you guys are interested in supporting my band on Patreon, we would appreciate that very much. If you want to support this channel on Patreon, too bad you can't, because this channel doesn't have a specific Patreon, but Raglan, my band, does. And the band is comprised of my wife and I. So if you guys are interested in supporting Raglan on Patreon, by default, you are supporting the channel directly. And there are different options down in there. There's a $3 option for all the budget players like myself. So yeah, go check out all the links down below, and down below let me know what you guys think about this video, if you guys want to see more stuff like this and what your thoughts are on this topic. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So I took the liberty of checking out Garnet in Webster's dictionary, and this is what it says: a brittle and more or less transparent, usually red silicate material, a whole bunch of other stuff that I can't even pronounce, and is used as a semi-precious stone and as an abrasive. I'm guessing that has something to do with a whole bunch of rocks or gems or whatever. I mean, that would make sense because these are gemnites. But if you check it out in the dictionary of Sam Cox, page 69, chapter 420, this definition reads as follows: the card or cards that we have to play in order to play the shit that we want to play. Very plain and simple. And that's what this video is about. It's about the Garnets of Yu-Gi-Oh!, where it came from, and how it kind of got its name, and what cards fall into the category of being a Garnet, and how this technique has been used to deck build over the last 20 plus years, especially over this last decade or so. So, Garnets, I feel like to get into a full discussion of what this means in Yu-Gi-Oh!, we should talk about the origin and kind of where it came from. Now, I want to take you guys back to 2015 during the release of Clash of Rebellions, or Core as we knew it back then, because in Yu-Gi-Oh! We like to abbreviate everything that we can because we're lazy. I feel like every long name in Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been abbreviated, and I feel like every single set that's ever came out, we've taken the acronym and just made like a full word from it. Whether they even make sense or not. But anyway, Brilliant Fusion, let's talk about this shit. This card's really insane, guys, and to put it bluntly, it's banned right now at the time of recording this video, as it should be. As much as I love the card, it's just really broken. So here's what it says: when this card is activated, fusion summon one Gemnite monster from your extra deck using monsters from your deck as fusion material, but change its attack and defense to 0, then a whole bunch of other stuff. But the main thing is you get to fuse with the cards in your deck. And that's absolutely crazy. You know, you have things like Shadow Fusion that allow you to fuse from your deck, but your opponent has to like control extra deck monsters and stuff. There's different stipulations. This one just has like fuse from your deck. This is actually really, really crazy. And this is what made this card very, very, very splashable. Now, this wasn't the first splashable engine, but it was definitely one of the most splashable engines of all time, like in Yu-Gi-Oh! That meant that almost any deck could play this card, and it could play it at 3. The decks that abused this card were the decks that played light monsters in the main deck. Now, the main target in the extra deck was Gemini Seraphonite, which required a light monster plus a Gemini monster. So that meant that you could send any light monster from the deck to the grave. You could normal summon twice, special summon a level 5 monster to the field. You could deck them, and you could have a discard outlet built into your continuous fusion spell. What in the fuck, guys? That is absolutely crazy. And I might add that there were a lot of monsters at this time that were light. And not only competitive decks were playing this, but there were also a lot of rogue strategies that got like a big boost because of Brilliant Fusion. Just off the top of my head, you know, Light Swarms and Fluffles were a couple of decks that like heavily abused this card. But let's bring it back to the topic of this video, Garnets, and to be specific, Gem-Knight Garnet. This was arguably the most popular Gem-Knight to run in the Brilliant Fusion engine because it was a Gem-Knight with the most attack, and you could actually summon it if you drew it, and it was, I don't know, you could still get some use out of it, I guess. It was a level 4, so it went well with, you know, XYZ summons and stuff, and also it was an Earth, so it went well with things that people were playing at that time. It was a normal monster with 0 defense, so whether it was, you know, in the hand, field, or grave, people found other different cards and combos to kind of use with this card. So even for a vanilla 1900 attack monster, it still had its uses, but we still did not want to draw this card. We wanted to send it to the grave from Brilliant Fusion. I watched countless players, including myself, lose matches from drawing this card. I've drew this card many times at ARG or YCS or regionals. I drew it once at nationals and it cost me the match. And I've watched many, many other players while spectating lose because they drew this card. Now, what's funny is you talk about power creep. To be honest with you, a 1900 attack monster in, you know, 2002 format or Yu-Gi Kaiba format would absolutely dominate. So we actually used to play Gem-Knight Garnet in multiple copies in the Brilliant Fusion engine until I would say late 2015 or so, whenever there was a first place deck profile at an ARG where the person that took first was only playing one copy of Gem-Knight Garnet, and that person was Patrick Hoven, which was arguably one of the best players in the circuit at the time. Now, I want to pinpoint this exact video and this exact profile because I believe that this was a huge turning point. And in my opinion, this changed not only the way that we played Brilliant Fusion, but the way that we kind of built decks since then. Now, I want to give credit where credit is due. This video was uploaded by the Card Guys way back when. They were one of the, you know, more competitive Yu-Gi-Oh channels. So shout out to those guys. I remember seeing this profile and thinking, okay, yeah, that works. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So let's check it out.
3 flush fire.
Of course, why not?
Yeah, this card's broken. And 3 damage juggler. 1 garnet.
Why only one? A lot of people had questions about this.
I was actually very opposed to 1 garnet for like a long time, but Justin kept Justin explained it where like you don't need to resolve 2 Brilliant Fusion to win the game.
Yeah.
And then the chances of opening like Garnet and Brilliant Fusion together, even with only 1 Garnet, is only like 4%. So like it means 96% of the time that's not gonna happen. Which like yeah, you'll probably lose those 4%, but like it's just kind of worth it because then you'll like draw a Garnet that much less because you only play 1 instead of playing 2.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that this was the first strategy to ever play a 3-to-1 ratio. I can think of a few off the top of my head pre-2015 that did, but it was the first one that was replicated in mass production because it was so ballsy as fuck, and it was rewarded for being ballsy because, you know, he got first. And it was the one that just totally changed deck building in Yu-Gi-Oh pretty much overnight. And the fact that he came in first place from that win from that event says a lot, especially to all his opponents who were probably playing 2 Garnets. After this, the game of Yu-Gi-Oh changed for sure, as someone turned into something like, if it's possible, let's play the absolute minimum of the card that we have to play and max out on the card that we want to play that require the quote-unquote garnet cards. Sometimes these ratio would differ due to the cards allowed. Sometimes cards would be allowed or unallowed, released or unreleased, etc. But most of the time, these types of engines were playing a 3-to-1 ratio from here on out. Now, here are a few examples of different combos that play the 3-to-1 ratio, and I believe are probably a product of what was the Garnet to Brilliant Fusion ratio. Now, these were all strategies and combos and engines that were all popular at one point or another and were maybe even splashable in other engines outside of their archetype. Now, here's a really interesting engine that I wanted to show you guys in this video, because this really just kind of spotlights how long we have been playing quote-unquote garnets in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, this is a very popular engine or combo in GOAT format, which is a legacy format that is taken from 2005, almost 20 years ago. So this really just kind of shows, how long we have been playing kind of these vanilla or dead cards in order to play the good cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, to be honest with you, in Yu-Gi-Oh! We kind of took this concept and we stretched it out even farther, sometimes a little too far. So yeah, it was definitely a big turning point in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I would say that the Garnet and Brilliant Fusion discussion definitely changed everything, because since then I have definitely heard more players talking about the mathematics and the calculations behind the cards in regards to deck building and what I'm going to see in my opening hand, etc. And there's also been a lot more, what is the percentage that I'm going to just drastically lose if I have this card at 1 or this card at 3 and that kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, there's been a lot more risk taking and a lot more just kind of like ballsy plays in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In regards to just playing and deck building since then. So it definitely did change everything long term, in my opinion. I remember back then there was a lot of rogue strategies that would play a certain card at a different ratio just because it was like, well, I might win drastically or lose drastically if I change up the ratios on this card. But people did it because there was a chance of them winning more. Some of the few things that I can think of was mass change used to be played at 2 or 3, and then for a while there, people were just playing mass change at 1, even though it was a key card to their deck. They were just like, let's just play it at 1, focus on getting the card that gets the card. And it was kind of the same with Necro Valley. People started to only play like 1 or 2 Necro Valley, like in Gravekeepers, because it was like, well, let's just max out on the Terraformings and max out on the Gravekeepers commanded and stuff like that. So it was really weird watching a lot of other strategies and archetypes kind of take this concept into play. And sometimes cards were so powerful that they were actually hit to 1, and people would still play them at a 1-to-1 ratio, hoping to see the Searcher or the Starter before they saw the Extender, or what we call the Garnet. For a brief time, Brilliant Fusion was actually put to 1 in the TCG, and many decks still managed to use it at 1 by playing the Lone Fire combo, which was, if you don't know what it is, it's Lone Fire into Lone Fire into Lone Fire into the Predaplant engine that we just talked about. Sometimes the cards are just that good that we have to play it at 1 still. And I'm going to show you guys a video. This is a really good example of what I'm talking about. Shout out to Denny Vu and Asian Persuasion, both buds of mine that are in this video.
3 draw, and then the spice from last year, Terra Top.
Oh, one.
Take too long, bro.
Look at these
It is a 1-card combo. It is nice. The card is nice. I drew this card by itself 3 times, but I drew this card like 8 times.
Oh my god.
so what happens? But,
No F sometimes.
yeah, it's okay. You can also instant fusion the win, because I played the Dragoness.
Oh, Dragon's Wicked
Yeah, I
Knight.
play the Dragoness, and then you can just special this card.
Yeah.
So it's like having 4 Terra Tops.
Like I said, sometimes cards are just that powerful that we need to take big chances on trying to resolve them. If we draw them, we do the best that we can to try to utilize them in our hands. Sometimes it rewards us. Sometimes we draw the garnets of the game and we take the L. But all this boils down into one simple concept. Now get out your pen and paper, because you're going to want to remember this, guys. High risk equals high reward. This is the concept that I learned a very long time ago in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But I really didn't start incorporating it heavily until probably, 6 or 7 years ago. The Garnet and Brilliant Fusion scenario was the one thing that made not only me but thousands of other players take deck building a little bit differently, if I'm being honest with you. Sometimes, there's perks in playing these cards. Sometimes they win games, depending on if they end up in your hand, in the grave, banished, etc. Sometimes it's a neg if you draw them, but the way that I look at it, you're already risking losing the match the second that you sit down at the table and the judge says, your time starts now. So why not go for the big plays? Now, I do understand that these ratios may not work for every deck, but I highly encourage everyone to look behind the math and calculate your chances of potentially making your deck more consistent by taking out or adding cards. I truly feel at the end of the day, it comes down to testing. And then test some more. And then after that, test some more. And then after you get tired of testing, put it down for a little bit and then test some more. And then after you do that, try testing it. And once again, for the people in the very back, high risk equals high reward. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today. Let me know down below in the comments what are some of the garnets that you have to play in your favorite decks or your favorite archetypes. If you guys are new around here, make sure you subscribe. I'd appreciate that very much. I do upload a lot of content in the category of competitive, rogue / retro. So if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff, make sure that you subscribe. I'd appreciate that very much. And if you guys are into music, would appreciate you guys check out the links below. And we will see you guys later.